All right, I'm gonna do a sashimi rose for you, and the sashimi rose is something that I think beginners for sushi could relatively easily do, and I think it's a great way to learn because while you're doing it, it isn't extremely complicated, and it teaches a lot about making good clean cuts and what you're supposed to be doing when you're handling the fish. This is something that I've done a few times before, but I'm not perfect at it. I don't have incredibly high grade fish to do this with, so I'm just taking what I have because I'm hungry and this is gonna be my lunch. So the first task is to skin the salmon that you're going to be using, because you're not going to be using any of that while you're here. Cut myself a little hole under it, and since this isn't fresh, it's taking a little bit of extra effort. So there's that. There's a lot of extra stuff that won't make this look beautiful, so I'll just take that off quickly. Now, something that you're gonna want to do if you're gonna do sashimi is get nice big chunks of fish, because sashimi is essentially all fish. So when you're doing this, I butchered the hell out of that piece of salmon, but it'll be okay. Make sure you have big, nice heaping chunks. Again, this fish isn't as high of grade as I would like, but that's okay. When you're getting into making the roes, you're going to be cutting triangles out of these fish and then rolling them into something, right? And if you want your sashimi to be incredibly meaty and thick, if you want your flour to be very dense, you'll cut straight down, and that'll produce really thick pieces that you can roll, and it'll be a nice chunky flour, and you won't have to how do I say this, you won't have to use so many pieces because it'll be a nice thick piece of meat on every single thing. If you want your flour to have petals and be pretty and look delicate, you're gonna want to go at the more severe your angle, the more delicate your flour will look. So I'm gonna go what I would call at about 45 degrees. Again, this sushi is not, or this fish is not incredibly high grade, so it's gonna have breaks. It's gonna not have, that's a very thick piece. You're shooting for millimeters, but since this fish is an incredibly high grade, it's gonna have different thicknesses throughout because it's gonna break while I cut it. I'm using yellowfin tuna and salmon. This is a relatively good piece, even though it's breaking. This is a good size, right, and thickness. And I have scrap containers because I am going to use the rest of this fish. The sharper your knife, the easier it'll get through without breaking. Again, with the salmon, I'm going to come in at a very severe angle. I'm going to try to do it all in one cut. Is relatively decent. I'm going to try to come through, get it under and through in one good clean cut. That's incredibly thin, and that'll be a good piece to start with. Actually, to start with, I'm going to use this piece of yellowfin up here that's very thick. I might not even use that at all because it's just simply too thick. especially if you're doing a sashimi rose like this. But coming in again at an angle, slicing all the way through. That'll be a good starter piece right there. It's very small. I'm going to take one more cut off this, and then I'm going to scrap the rest for today. It's crushing because my knife isn't as sharp as I would like it to be. So now you have, you know, 4 pieces of tuna, 4 pieces of salmon, and if you want your flower to have very distinct petals, then you're going to need to cut lopsided triangles out of it. And we are going to repurpose the trim that we're using for these triangles. So there's a relatively decent triangle. Of course, the tuna's breaking because of the knife and because of the quality. Let's see if we can get a better triangle on this one. It's a little bit better of a triangle. Since this one's breaking like that on the, I'll turn that into the bottom, and usually you'll want the flat side of all of these pieces to be on the bottom of the flower, but I'm going to use this since it's already breaking. Collecting the scraps. Nice pretty triangle right there. And you can see this triangle coming to be. There's that. Now for the salmon, it has been frozen and thawed, so that's why it is incredibly sticky for me. But the stickiness will help me make the rose, and you'll see that here in just a minute. I'm trying to decide which side of the salmon that I want to turn into the point. I'm going to cut left-handed with a right-handed knife, like you should never do. Not there. We'll call that close enough. Trim this to where it's straight. And get that in. That's a good triangle. We love that. That'll look good. What am I dealing with? We'll cut that there. We'll make this the very center. I know I've said that a couple times, but you want a smaller piece for the center because it'll be easier to work with. And then you'll make bigger pieces around it. This will probably go closer to the middle with this one, but not directly in the middle. This will be a good wrapping piece for like the totality of the flower. Alrighty. Now, you've got your pieces lined up. What we're going to be doing for this one is I can see that the point is over here and that this is the thicker end. So I'm going to roll the thicker end into the point. Yeah. Gonna take another piece of tuna and roll that around. You can already see the flower shape starting to be made. I'll take this piece of tuna here. I'm gonna wrap it with this. And of course, you can see how the thinner it is, the more it'll butterfly out and it'll look very good on the plate. You really don't absolutely have to have skewers or toothpicks or anything, because the moisture in the fish will make it relatively stable. and you get to choose where you'd like to have your petals come out from. I'm going to take and wrap this here. I've made thinner ones, I've made thicker ones, but that is a gorgeous, cute little flower. Now, for the salmon scraps and the tuna scraps, what I like to do is turn them into a quick little puree, something small. I like to cut it up as small and thin as I possibly can. And it'll be easy and quick, because you're working with something that doesn't want to be cut. Just like you're making a salmon patty, if you've ever done that. Getting this very thin and small. Nice collection of salmon there. Get the tuna the same way. This tuna's tearing, which isn't the most phenomenal feeling in the world, but alrighty. Now that I got the basic ingredients there, I've already got a plate made that I'm going to put the roes on. If you do it correctly, you can just pick the whole thing up. It's not really that intense of something to do, but put that there. And then I like to sprinkle these like they're flower petals over the whole thing. I didn't chop this piece very well, so we'll take that out. And take and put that together. Great. These scraps I will repurpose and use later. I will likely just mix them into rice, cook them if I feel like it. But that is an easy sashimi flower for you.